Sony Alpha a6400. In 2021, this is my favorite mirrorless video camera, under $1,000. In this video, I'm going to talk about 5 things I really love about this camera and why I think this is a huge value in 2021. There are 3 things that I don't like about this camera, but those are all fixed with the a6400. But it is $400 more expensive than this camera, and it doesn't come with a lens. Number 1 thing I like about this camera is it has unlimited record time. In the menu system, auto power off temp, the default is on standard, and that's when it will shut down when it gets too hot. But when you switch it on to high, you can now record unlimited record length to the SD card. It lasts as long as your SD card or as your battery before your battery drains. So that is pretty good, and once you factor in the unlimited record limit, there's not a lot of other cameras that fit that description. All the Canon mirrorless cameras, they cap you off at 29 minutes. So you'll have to, if you want unlimited record time with the Canons, you're gonna have to get an external video recorder. The second thing I like about the a6400 is the autofocus. It has amazing autofocus that I think it's neck and neck with the dual pixel autofocus on the Canons. I have never been out of focus when I had selfie videos or I'm just doing video in general. And what I want in focus, there's also a touch to focus that works really well. The third thing I like about this camera are the picture profiles. There are a lot of the common Sony picture profiles in this camera, and you don't see all of these profiles in other brands. Other brands, they don't give you a lot of choices, especially the logs. Once you want to shoot log, either in C-Log or Panasonic V-Log, they don't let you do that without upgrading. But with the Sonys here, you go to the picture profiles and you get almost all of their profiles, including HLG, S-Log2, and S-Log3. The one I like to shoot with is the PP1, which is just the regular movie gamma. And I find that to be, when I'm in the movie gamma, it's just right out of the box. I don't have to do a lot of color correction in post. I can just take the clip and that's my final clip. I don't really need to do much. The fourth thing I like about this camera is that it does have an audio jack right over here, and the audio features are pretty good. I like the preamps. You can dial it up a little bit and you don't hear a lot of noise. It also has this the hot shoe. So if you wanted a Sony proprietary shotgun mount, or they have a XLR adapter, I believe that works here. So there's an alternative way to put in audio. And the fifth thing I like about this camera is that the USB multi-port could be used for both powering the camera, and this could be converted, this camera could be converted to a USB webcam using the Sony's USB app, and you could just use it with very low latency. I noticed that the latency with a USB is about as low as any of the USB webcams. The 3 things that I don't like about this camera were all fixed with the a6600. So the a6600 adds in-body image stabilization to the camera. I hear that it's not great, but it's better than having no IBIS, which the a6400 doesn't have. And then there's no headphone jack, which would be nice to have if you're monitoring your audio. And the battery life is longer because it's just a different type of battery. It does not accept the same batteries as the a6400. But I found that these a6400 small batteries here, I can buy some generic ones. You don't need to get the official Sony ones. And you buy just a handful and you can last the whole day. The only problem is when you want to shoot for long periods, say you're shooting for an hour, the battery barely makes it past an hour, and then you got to swap it depending on your video modes. And I don't want to run into that, so I always use a dummy battery whenever I know I'm going to be shooting for longer than 30 minutes. Here's a body comparison to the a6400 and the GH5, which is a micro four thirds camera, but how big and massive this camera is when it's supposed to be smaller than APS-C size sensors cameras. I thought that was pretty funny. And it weighs more too. If I had to choose between the two, getting a GH5 and an a6400, if you're more on the professional end and you want high quality video footage that you want to grade, then the 10-bit 422 on the GH5, and all of the other features that the higher codecs on the GH5 is more robust, and you could do more in post. But when you're just shooting clips that you don't want to grade, you want to have a fast turnaround, you want to save on space, you don't want to waste a lot of time in post, or you don't have the time in post, or you don't have the skills to do anything in post, the a6400 is a better buy. The big thing is the autofocus. The autofocus on the GH5, GH5S, basically all the Panasonic cameras are terrible. And the Panasonic cameras are the only other brands that give you the unlimited record time. If you want Micro Four Thirds and you go to Olympus limits you at 30 minutes. And if you want to go to Fuji, which has better autofocus, slightly better autofocus than the Panasonic, you're still limited with your record time. So when you factor all that in, to have unlimited record time and great autofocus, the a6400 is really stands on its own, unless you want to go above $1,000. And the last thing I'll compare this to is the ZV1. This ZV1 I have in a U-rig cage. The ZV1 with this cage, it's not that much smaller than the a6400, even though the a6400 is an APS-C size sensor, and the ZV1 is a 1-inch sensor. In low light, when you have a lens that is wider, so it opens up to, like, say, a 1.4 or something, this is always going to be better in low light. But then if you have a slow lens like this 16 to 50, which isn't a terrible lens for video, for stills it's not that great, but for video it's not that bad. And in video mode, the widest it can open is 3.5. So when you're comparing an APS-C size sensor at 3.5 f-stop with a 1-inch sensor at a 1.8, this will let in more light at the same ISO. That's how much of a difference having a slow lens is. But then once you put on a really fast lens, you can't really compete. The ZV1 can't compete with the low light capabilities. The situations where I would buy a ZV1 is if, number one, you travel a lot and you need to be light. Let's say you're a backpacker, let's say you're international travel, you want to be really light and you want to just keep this on yourself and not have to worry about carrying extra weight. It's the ZV1. And also if you're more of a less of a photographer and strictly video, all video, and you only sometimes do stills, the ZV1 is better. The a6400, if you're not going to take advantage of the interchangeable lenses by having better, faster lenses to get better photography and better video, just buy the ZV1. Then at that point, the ZV1 is way better, because then even though the battery life is awful, this accepts USB power with a USB battery bank. So what you do is you just put on a battery bank, or you can plug it into the wall with a USB adapter and run this continuously just through that. You don't need a dummy battery AC wall adapter. I think in 2021, this is still a camera to buy, and I think it could last another couple years of use. When you want to upgrade this, just get better lenses and you should be pretty good. Love the a6400.